Everyone thinks they know the story of Cinderella. They remember the soot on her face, the cruelty of her stepsisters, and the girl who spent her nights dreaming by the fireplace. But myths have a way of hiding the truth, and the truth is never as simple as a glass slipper. The ashes weren't weakness, they were strength. The silence wasn't obedience, it was patience. And the girl in the shadows wasn't waiting to be saved. She was waiting for her moment, because the real story is far more powerful than a glass slipper. Years had passed in that cold, silent house. To the world she was just a servant. But inside, a storm was brewing. Cinderella didn't just feel different. She felt a hum in her veins. A strange rhythm that moved in time with the flickering shadows on the walls. One rainy afternoon, drawn by a whisper only she could hear, she climbed the stairs to the forgotten attic. It was a place of ghosts and memories, buried beneath the heavy dust of a decade. There, hidden under moth-eaten blankets, sat an ancient wooden chest. It bore a mark she recognized from her mother's old stories, a symbol of a forgotten lineage of starlight and shadow. As her trembling fingers reached for the cold iron lock, the air in the room grew heavy. The moment the latch clicked open, the silence didn't just break, it shattered. A blinding golden light burst from within, swirling around her like a living thing. She didn't pull away. For the first time in her life, she felt whole. The magic wasn't a gift from a stranger. It wasn't a temporary spell. It was her birthright, an ancient power awakening from its long sleep, flowing through her hands and lighting the darkness of the attic. Cinderella stood tall, the glow of magic reflected in her eyes. The girl who waited for a miracle was gone. The legend was just beginning, and this time the magic would never fade. The attic had given her a gift, but the world below was still cold. As Cinderella descended the stairs, the air felt heavier, as if it knew her secret. Her stepmother was waiting in the shadows, a woman whose heart was as sharp as the silver cane she leaned upon. Her gaze was cold, searching, looking for a crack in the girl's soul. Her sisters laughed. They saw only the rags, only the soot. They could not see the fire beginning to burn beneath her skin. When they tore the only memory of her mother from her hands, something inside her changed. It wasn't just sadness anymore, it was power. The candles flickered, the shadows twisted across the walls. For a brief moment, the entire house trembled. The magic did not want to be hidden. She ran into the night, away from their whispers, away from their cruelty. But in the moonlit garden, she understood something. The ball wasn't a dream. It was an invitation. And this time, she was ready to answer. The garden was drowned in silence, but the air around Cinderella vibrated. She wasn't waiting for a fairy godmother. She wasn't waiting for someone else's mercy. The magic she had discovered in the attic was now pulsing in sync with her heartbeat. She closed her eyes and reached her hands toward the stars. At first, it was only a tiny spark, a golden thread weaving between her fingers. But then the light grew. It rose around her, spinning, flowing, like a waterfall of radiance. The old rags dissolved into dust, replaced by silk woven from moonlight itself. Every fold of her dress shimmered with the stardust of 1,000 years. The magic wasn't just dressing her, it was revealing her. Then came the shoes. They weren't made of glass. They were frozen light, stronger than diamond, lighter than air. With every step she took, the earth beneath her bloomed with golden flowers. And the final magic rose from the garden itself. From a forgotten pumpkin in the shadows, a carriage began to grow, not of wood and iron, but of pure, glowing energy, shining in the dark like a small sun. Cinderella looked at her reflection in the pond. There was no soot, no fear. She wasn't going to the ball just to dance. She was going to bring the light back to a kingdom that had forgotten it. The carriage moved forward, leaving a trail of sparks behind her. The path ahead was glowing, and there was no turning back. The palace rose toward the sky like a mountain of light and gold, but behind the brilliance of 1,000 candles, there was a coldness no one dared to name. The magic of this place had long since faded, until now. When the ballroom doors swung open, the music stopped. Cinderella did not enter quietly. She entered like a rising sun. Every eye in the hall turned toward her. Whispers fell into silence. Her stepmother stared. Her sisters froze. They saw a princess. But something about her felt familiar, something that unsettled them. The prince stepped forward. He did not see jewels. He did not see silk. He saw the flame in her eyes, the same flame he had read about in forgotten stories of his lineage. They met in the centre of the hall, two souls carrying the weight of entire worlds. As they began to dance, the world around them seemed to fade. The music softened, the candles flickered, and beneath her dress the locket pulsed with quiet power. She wasn't here just to dance. She leaned closer and whispered words the prince hadn't heard since childhood. Words about truth, about the power sleeping beneath the foundations of the palace. But time is a treacherous ally. The magic that brought her here began to grow heavy. The shadows in the corners stretched longer, and through the crowd her stepmother moved forward, eyes cold, filled with icy hatred. She had recognized the sparks. High above them the clock tower stirred. The moment of truth was approaching, and this time the price would be high. The first strike of the clock cut through the hall like a blade. Cinderella felt the magic inside her shift. It wasn't fading, it was growing wilder, stronger, harder to contain. She pulled away from the prince's arms as the second strike echoed through the stone heart of the palace, the third, the fourth. Across the ballroom her stepmother pushed forward, eyes burning with rage. She had seen the sparks, but Cinderella was already moving. She ran down the marble stairs, her dress trailing light behind her. With every step, the magic flickered and surged, not breaking, expanding. She wasn't running from shame. She was protecting something far greater than herself. The ninth strike rang out. One shoe slipped free. It struck the stone and remained there, pulsing softly in the dark. She did not stop. The 11th strike thundered. The carriage outside was beginning to dissolve, melting into clouds of golden sparks. She leapt inside at the very last moment. And when the 12th strike echoed into the night, silence fell. On the palace stairs lay the glowing shoe, not a fragile piece of glass, but a beacon. The prince lifted it carefully. The magic burned against his palm. It was real. She was real. Far beyond the palace walls, hidden within the forest shadows, Cinderella looked back at the glowing towers. She had lost a shoe, but she had found her destiny. The ball was over, but the war for magic had only just begun.